Well, I have kind of a late start to the day. Moving Kyle's Integra last night, I re-aggravated my bad knee, but I managed to get the work area cleaned up. Kyle's car is moved over here. I've got my tools are packed up in the wagon, and finally getting ready to go head over to Dameion's and see what he's got going on today. Dog pool on the side of my car. Now I'm over here at Dameion's. He's already started tearing down into his block. He's got it all cleaned up for his build. He's got his engine bay all painted up. Nice new gold color. And doing a wire tuck on it. Came over here a few nights ago. Giving him some tips and pointers to get him started. See what he's got going on in here. Going to be removing all the air duct work, getting rid of the heater and AC from the car. So he made himself a nice little panel and moved his fuse boxes over there behind where the glove box would be. Got his headlight harness running out this side here. He's already got his windshield wiper already loomed up and plugged up inside there. No longer down inside the engine bay. It's getting there, it's looking good. We're going to be doing the rest of his tuck. We're going to enlarge in this hole down on the frame rail here. And down on the front side of the rail we'll drill another hole or cut it open here. And then we're going to fish the harness through the whole rail on both sides of the car. That way, in case in the future, if like a tire blows out or something happens with the loom outside, nothing will end up being able to destroy his wire harness. Nice garage full of parts. Bet you can guess now what we got going on with this thing. A lot of work. You want to tell everybody a little bit what you're building?
G22, f22a1 bottom end with the f20b head. Gonna be forged connecting H-beam rods, stock crankshaft, skunk tube alpha springs, dual springs, titanium retainers with turbo.
And what turbo are you running?
eBay 60 trim.
eBay 60 trim?
Yeah.
And what kind of power are you trying to end up pushing out of this in the end?
600.
And obviously trying to hit that power on stock sleeves.
Yes, stock sleeves. ARP head studs, ARP main studs. Anything to hold this thing together.
Right now I've got him cleaning up all the crap out of the water jackets, because he's going to be a guinea pig on something that I actually did to one of my other blocks, but I'm not anywhere near ready to boost any of my cars yet. But I've seen a couple different YouTubers, DIY Mike and I believe Hunter Tuned. They did a little something similar for closing in the engine block, because Dameion here, he's doing this build on a budget, and he's already spent quite a few dollars on a lot of these nice parts that he has here. We don't exactly have the $400 to $500 to send this block off to CSS and have them close in the deck. So he's got it cleaned up. What we're going to do, something similar to what DIY Mike and Hunter Toon did, as kind of just a little tester to see if it'll work. They used a product called DevCom, where they filled in the water jackets, closed in their deck themselves, and then drilled their water jacket holes. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be using JB Weld, because JB Weld has a little bit of a higher tensile strength than the DevCom that those guys used. We're going to give the JB Weld a try. We have another block if it doesn't hold up too well, but Dameion just said, he's running some H-beams. Got some DSM turbo pistons that are going in it, so they'll hold more power than the stock Honda f22 pistons. Alright, so we've got the water jackets all cleaned out. Use some 220 grit sandpaper to scuff up the edges so that the JB Weld has something to kind of adhere to. So at this point, all we really got to do is block off the holes where the water pump went, and then we'll be able to take some sugar, fill in the water jacket to the heights that we're going to want to set the JB Weld at, and then we can mix up the JB Weld and get it laid up inside the block. There we got our cylinder jackets filled to the heights that we wanted with the sugar. Dameion's over there mixing up a bag of industrial size or professional size, whatever they called it, JB Weld. Mixed together like a little pastry bag. We'll cut the corner off, and then just like the other guys, fill it all in. Got our baggie full of JB Weld all mixed up. Got Dameion over there slowly but surely squeezing like a pastry bag JB Weld into our water jacket. We're going to do that all the way around the whole entire block, and then we'll let it cure for a couple days before we mark it and drill all our water holes for the head gasket. So now we got the water jackets completely filled in with the JB Weld. We just need to let it sit for a couple days while it completely cures. Then we'll be able to lay a head gasket on it, mark our water jacket holes, and get her drilled out. Alright, it's been a week and I'm back over here. All the JB Weld has had plenty of time to harden up here inside the water jacket on the block. It's nice and solid. All we got to do now is lay the head gasket on here, mark all our water jacket holes, and then we got to drill our holes. And then we can finish getting this block tore apart so we can send it off to the machine shop and get the deck redone. And Dameion is still continuing on his wire tuck. Got most of his wirings already done up on the headlight. All we got to do is drill out the holes in his frame rail and start fishing the rest of his wires through to connect them back into the car. Do that on both sides. So right now we're going to pull out our head gasket, a Sharpie marker. We're going to lay it down here on the block, get all our water jackets marked up, pull out the drill bit, and get started. So I've never built one of these g22 vtec engines using a f20b head. So before I lay the head gasket down onto the block to mark all our water holes on the water jackets, wanted to make sure that this single cam head gasket was going to match up to everything on the f20b head, because we've been told that using this head we were going to want to use the f22 single cam gasket. And matching it up to the head, I found out that there is a problem. I'll show you guys right here. Is that won't have any issues with any of the oil drains that are on the front side of the head, but onto the back side of the head, our second oil drain off the head closer to the distributor side of the engine doesn't quite match up to the very edge of the oil drain off of the head. So this head gasket's gonna end up leaking right here at this edge. It's not gonna work. So Dameion's now on the phone searching the part stores, trying to find us an H22 head gasket, which we know will 100% line up with everything on the head. And then we'll have to lay that gasket on the block when we get that on our heads to make sure that all the oil drains will work fine from the F22 and make sure that we don't have to do any kind of dremeling to match up the oil drains to the head a little bit better. So we're just going to carry on with working on his wire tuck. I'll pull out the drill, get all the holes drilled in his frame rail so we can go ahead and fish his wiring through and get the fender off of this side, do the same thing over here, and then he'll one loom pulled through the frame rail. Gotta pull the fender off the other side. Do it to the other side too. Got a nice loom. All our wiring in there that we just need to reconnect back to the pigtail coming out the car. Holes for the passenger side are now drilled out. Just got to get this cut up, labeled, put in a loom, and then Dameion will be able to fish this side through and finish up initially all the engine bay wiring, and then he can move on to finishing everything he's got going on inside the car. Before he actually orders the gasket, I came home to grab one of my old gaskets that I just yanked off of Robbie's motor so I can bring it back over there, match it up to the head, make sure that it is going to work. Then we can lay that gasket down on the block, get our water jackets drilled out, then we can get our bottom end tore apart and send it off to the machine. Alright, again, checking this out with the F22 gasket on there. I've got it marked how far out the gasket actually covers these oil drains. This one barely has any edging, and then on this one it sits directly on the edge of the oil drain. So definitely this F22 gasket, there's no way that's going to work. But then when we put the H22 gasket on it, everything works out just great on the head. But then when we take this H gasket and we go and put it on the F22 engine block, this gasket from the H is barely covering this oil drain and this oil drain here, right on the edge. I don't know, I'm kind of at a dead standstill with this one. I'm not really sure what we should do. If there's another gasket that'll work for us, or if we're just going to have to send this to a machine shop. I mean, it's going to the machine shop anyways, but it'll cost a lot more money if we have them weld up the two oil drains and have them re-drill them. So we got a hand on an F23 gasket, and it looks pretty much damn near identical to the F22 gasket. So we still have an issue. I believe that the only solution we're going to end up coming to is we're going to have these two oil drains welded up and resized to match our gasket. So that's pretty much what we're stuck at as far as the oil drains on the head. Alright, I'm going to start by getting all these balance shafts ready to come out so the oil pump will slip off. All the bolts from the front oil pump have already been removed. I've got my 12s are already removed from the housing for the rear balancer. And we're going to work on getting the gear off for the front balancer, which has a hole that runs through the shaft that we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick number 2 Phillips head screwdriver in there to hold that still while you use your 12mm on a socket wrench to break the bolt loose. Come on. That's your front pulley. Oh, he ran to go get a gasket. And for the rear balancer, there's a plug on the back side of the motor, 12mm. Remove that.
That's his oil pump, huh?
Yep.
Mine pull things the whole front one. Just sucks about mine.
And just like at the front, there's a hole in the balance shaft. Stick your number 2 screwdriver in there till you find that. Lock it in place. Get that bolt removed, gear removed, and the washer behind it. All right, I removed the pickup tube from the oil pump, the 4 tins that held it onto the pump, and I was able to pull the pump off of the motor, slid the front balance shaft out of the assembly. Now or actually that's the rear, and for the front balancer, remove the 2 10mm out of this bracket, and we can pull this thing out and remove that balance shaft. And all we have left are the 10 main cap bolts and all 8 connecting rod nuts. All 10 main bolts are out. Now on each side there's like kind of like a little spot right here I'm going to use to separate kind of difficult doing this with one hand. As you can see, I got each side is now popped loose, and now I can take the whole assembly off. A few of these main caps down here are still going to be attached. We'll just stick a big bolt down in there and rock them back and forth, and we'll be able to pull those back off. Then we can get to the connecting rods, push the pistons and rods out, and we'll be done with this block. Flip it back over, get these oil drains, or not oil drains. We'll flip this thing back over, and now that we're going to take care of the head and use the f22 gasket, I've got all my water jackets marked out for us ready to drill. And we'll get those drilled out, and then we're going to call it a night after that. Main caps are all off. Now we just need to get all the 13mm nuts, separate the caps from the connecting rods, get all those pistons and rods pushed out through the block, and then lift this crank out, drill out our water jackets, and then this block will be ready to go off to the machine shop. Block is now gutted, ready to flip this thing over and start drilling the water jacket holes. Well, with all the bad news and headaches that we've been having, I put out a emergency call out on Facebook to find somebody that could weld up the oil drains on our head. Thank you, Sean, GSM, for hooking us up with one of your homies. We were able to quickly go out and just got the head sent out and got it back. We had our oil drains are now nice and matched up to our head gasket. The f22 gasket, that is. Now we can get the head machined. We won't have any more gasket issues. All we got left now is to drill out all the water jacket holes. So now we're going to pull out the drill, get these things drilled out, and then we're going to wash all the sugar out of this block, and we can send this thing off to the machine shop. Alright, so it took a few days and we had quite a few headaches trying to figure out our oil drain issues and head gasket matchup problems. I'll admit 100% right off, like I said at the beginning of the video, that the G22 with the F22 block and either the H22 or the F20B head that we're using is a combination that I yet to have actually built myself. I've done both variations of the G23 build, as you guys have seen in my previous videos. So we did this trial by error. We figured it out. We're going to have to use the F22 gasket. We did have to find somebody to weld up the oil drains to match them up better to our gasket. And thank you, Sean Morgan, for hooking us up with your buddy Jose, who we were able to just go and drop the head off, and within 2 hours he had it done for us. So all that's left for me to do with this thing is get the valve guide seals changed out, get the valves reseated, and we can send the head to the machine shop to have the surface redone. The engine block, it's already ready to go. The JB weld, I don't think there's going to be any issues with it. I put that product to quite a test in my early stupid days as a teenager and broke a clutch fork, and yes, I used JB weld to weld a clutch fork back together. It did fail, so to hold up over a few hundred pounds of force of pressure on a clutch pressure plate for a few hundred miles, I'd have to say it's a pretty strong product. So, but however, I do not advocate to any of you guys to just go out and do this. We're just having some fun testing this thing out because these F blocks are cheap. We already have like 2 or 3 extra ones if this doesn't work out too well. And I highly do recommend that when you do these builds with the open decks, to send your block off to CSS, Cylinder Support Systems. It's roughly up to about $500 or $600 to have them close your deck in properly and give a guarantee on the stock sleeves up to like 500 or 600 horsepower or something like that. I strongly recommend that. Don't just go out and do this JB Weld stuff because you see me do it and because I've seen other YouTubers do it. We're just having some fun. We're going to test it out. Hopefully you guys will have some fun watching, how this actually ends up. Our machine shop that's going to be decking the block, they're quite excited to see what happens with the thing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to test this JB Weld closed deck block on a boosted build, Frankenstein build. We now have proper oil drain matchups to use an f22 gasket with the f20b head. I think that's going to be it. So thank you guys for watching. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, keep this channel growing. Until next time, peace out.